I'm here to talk about a silent killer. Most of you know that extreme heat is a problem, but I don't know if everyone knows that extreme heat kills more people every year than any other climate peril. From Morocco to Mexico, from Southern California to the Sahel, record-breaking temperatures have killed scores of people in the past year. And experts project that without action, that could actually quadruple for the elderly by the middle of the century. That's just 25 years out. Extreme heat isn't just fatal, it hurts our kids and our workers. In fact, for every 1 degree increase in temperature, there's a 1% increase in learning loss in our schools. And heat is also having a staggering impact on workers, causing nearly 23 million workplace injuries each year. So I learned a new term this week. It's called heatflation. And that's the prices that food will increase due to extreme heat. And on top of all of these analysis, people project that there'll actually be a 700% increase in the amount of urban poor exposed to extreme heat by the middle of the century. The worst part, we scientists know that the BAU impacts are likely undercounted. The best part, we have the tools we need to bend the curve. That's why I have hope. The solutions to extreme heat are easy to implement and low cost, unlike, for example, building a flood wall. At USAID, America's Global Development Agency, we've turned hope into action. In the next 4 minutes, I'm going to talk about 4 ways that we are tackling extreme heat. So first, we innovated and empowers communities with data and technology. Today, only half of the world's countries have extreme heat health warning systems, yet just 24 hours of warning can save 30% of the damage. And according to the World Health Organization, if we put in heat early warning systems in 57 countries, we would actually save 100,000 lives each year. The first thing a country needs before it can create an early warning system? Data. So starting with decades-old maps that USAID has been using for drought, we create new heat exposure projection maps, like the one on this screen. These maps will help our missions in 80 countries around the world plan for extreme heat. And to bolster these maps and provide ground-level data, we started 3D printing weather stations in the most vulnerable countries in Asia and Africa. 3D weather stations take about a week to print, and they cost only $200. Second, we focused on infrastructure. So only 8% of the 3 billion people living in the world's hottest countries reside in homes with air conditioning. The situation is a lot worse in the schools where our children go to school. This year, more than 40 million students were shut out of classrooms as heat waves forced closures. For example, in South Sudan, 2.2 million children were turned away from schools after temperatures soared to 113 degrees. I spoke earlier about the learning loss from extreme heat. These children didn't even have a chance to show up. But there's hope because we're taking action. This summer, USAID partnered in Jordan to commit to build 30 heat-resilient schools. The schools are the gold standard. For example, they'll include interventions like passive cooling, and they'll benefit 35,000 students. What is remarkable is that we can actually cut learning loss up to 20% with just a few low-cost modifications. I'm going to walk you through how we can cool schools 5 degrees Celsius for less than $5 per student. So let's break this down. Studies have found that painting a roof white can decrease the temperature about 2 degrees Celsius. The cost of a can of solar reflective paint in India is about $24. So let's do the math. If we painted the roofs of the schools of the 40 million students that got shut out of their classrooms this year due to extreme heat, the cost of that intervention is about $2.40. That's the cost of a bag of Doritos, the small bag. And it doesn't stop there. We intuitively know that planting trees decreases temperatures substantially. Sierra Leone's program is called Freetown to Treetown, which is the most well-known for this. And if we plant just one or two more trees, that will reduce temperatures in the classroom an additional 3 degrees for a total cost of just $5 per student. I'm going to say that again. 5 degrees of cooling for just $5. And that means if we spend $5 per student, we can also decrease learning loss 5%. If we spend a little bit more, about $1, we could cool a classroom of 50 students in Asia and Africa 8 to 12 degrees and decrease learning loss 20%. We just need to scale this work. Which brings me to my third point, finance. With all of this evidence, you're probably thinking global leaders from around the world are investing in solutions, they're driving innovation, they're putting real firepower behind this issue. Guess how much of the $1.3 trillion in global climate funding is currently going to dedicated programs for extreme heat? The truth, we don't know for certain, but we estimate less than 1%. That's the climate issue that kills the most people is getting less than 1% of the funding. That's not right. And that's why USAID Administrator Power's leadership, we decided to take on this problem. And we engaged the financial sector. This summer, we partnered with the US Department of Treasury to bring together the presidents of all the regional development banks. These banks provide more than $100 million of funding to developing countries across the world. So it's really important to have them on board. And you know what? Every regional development bank president showed up. And now we're discussing how to increase cohesion and programming for these banks. In addition, we signed an agreement with a $13.5 million global fund to strengthen cooperation and coordination on extreme heat. And in June, we partnered with the World Meteorological Organization to brief more than 30 foundations on extreme heat. And 1 month later, when the UN Secretary General issued a call to action for extreme heat, 12 foundations committed to invest $50 million in extreme heat. That brings me to the fourth action we took. We brought people together. We empowered them. We enlisted them. People to save the planet. At the tip of the spear, we strategically partner with the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. We virtually brought together more than 2,000 leaders from across the world to talk about solutions to protect workers from extreme heat and communities. And we launched a global sprint of action, broadening out to include finance and students. And in September, we invited global leaders to the first White House Summit on extreme heat, where we platformed heroes on how we could all build a global infrastructure for extreme heat and empower others. Why? Because people are policy, and we know that when you create positions, when you give people responsibility to take an action, change happens. And in closing, we have two choices. The split screen is stark. On the one hand, there is a vision of the world where things have gotten much worse. A 70% increase in the number of people exposed to extreme heat. Instead of 40 million, 240 million students getting pulled out of school due to extreme heat. Or we could scale these four things. We could reduce exposure to extreme heat in classrooms in Africa 5 degrees with just $5 for students. We could decrease learning loss up to 20%. We could provide data and early warning systems to save 100,000 lives each year. It is more than achievable. Extreme heat is such a big problem, but it costs so little to solve. $5 to achieve 5 degrees of cooling per student, $200 to print a 3D weather monitoring station. Solving this, though, is going to take people of all types. So come join me. Let's scale this work. The thing that's game-changing about extreme heat is that they already exist. They're low-cost solutions. They're easy to scale. They're straightforward solutions that are within our grasp now. So whether you're a company, whether you're a community leader, whether you're a financer, you have a chance to do something better. As the world races to address the root causes of climate change, the pollution that we put into the sky, we must race to put forward a better, broader, bolder response to the impacts that we have already caused. Extreme heat is powerful, but hope translated into action is more powerful. So let's start planting trees. Let's start planting roofs. The students here today, partner with the school, help them increase their access to data in a developing country. Invest in solutions that work. Come at your own pace, come join me, and start with the most vulnerable communities and workers. The people on our planet depend on it. Thank you.